Hi everyone, I'm going to walk you through how to open Photoshop and create a new file. Now, if you have the program already downloaded, the first thing you'll want to do before you even open it is to hold down the shortcut Shift Alt Command if you're on a Mac or Shift Alt Control if you're on a PC. Hold those down the whole time while you open the program. So I'm still holding those down with my left hand. I'm clicking on Photoshop. And you want to hold that shortcut down until you see this dialog box pop up. And it will ask you if you want to delete the Adobe Photoshop settings file. You're going to click yes, because that resets the program back to its default state. This is particularly helpful if you're working in a lab or public space where someone else might have their settings left over on that computer. But for your own practice too at home, it is a really good habit to get into just because it helps prevent some bugs and issues in the program by resetting it. All right, so now that we are in Photoshop, we are going to create a new file. So we're going to come over here to the button and click Create New. And you're going to be presented with a bunch of options. So first things first, just know that these tabs up at the top are different kind of presets that you can use. So if you know you're going to be designing a image or something for a mobile application, it has a bunch of preset sizes and options there for you. If you're doing something you want to print out, it has other options. So just know that there are some presets. But if you have been using things recently or if you have something copied to the clipboard, those will be here under recent. We are just going to start our own new file and put our own information in here though together. So the first thing it's going to ask you for is a name. You put your last name at the start of your files because that's going to help me make sure that I know whose work is whose in case anything gets jumbled in Drive, and it'll also help you keep track of your files. So next, I always like to name it with the assignment name. So what we're going to call this is just PS Intro. And I use an underscore because sometimes this is not happening as much recently, but sometimes spaces and file names can cause some issues there. So instead of a space, try using underscores when you are naming files and folders. The next thing we're going to see as an option here is the dimensions. So the dimensions are the width and height of a file, and those are usually, if your settings are set to pixels, the width and height will be in pixels. So I can type in, my numbers here. I'm just going to go with 600 by 600. And what I mean by a pixel, you've probably seen and heard this a lot, but what a pixel actually um, is the smallest element, smallest controllable element of an image. And they're each assigned a color and then they're arranged to form that image. And what pixel stands for is actually picture element, or the smallest possible little building block of an image. Once you have your dimensions set, you'll notice over here that it gives you the option to choose your orientation, and notice that there's one with a more tall vertical layout and one with a more wide and horizontal layout. These are referred to as portrait and landscape orientation. So if we've got our dimensions already set, it doesn't look like it's making much of a difference, but just know that these are options here for how you want to lay out your workspace or your canvas. This option here for artboards basically just is for if you wanted to have multiple canvases. So what that means is if you wanted to have multiple white areas that were distinct separate images that you wanted to work on all at once, it would be like if you took 3 pieces of paper and put them out on your desk instead of just having 1 piece of paper to work on. So that's what artboards can do for you. We're not going to need that right now. The next thing is resolution, and resolution just means the number of pixels in an image, and it can be calculated by the width and height of the pixels in the image, as well as the total number of pixels in an image. So if you're saying like, oh, this image has a 1,000 pixel resolution, that's how many pixels are in it. Or if you're saying this image has a 300 by 600 resolution. That's another way of saying it. So either the width and height in pixels can be something's resolution, or the total number. And we'll get into that in more detail later. All right, so the next option, you will see this unit of measurement, so pixels per inch. That is pretty standard, especially in America, but obviously if you are somewhere using the metric system, they will probably use pixels per centimeter. So we're going to use pixels per inch. Next option you'll see is color mode. So the two main color modes that we're going to want to be aware of are RGB and CMYK. RGB is used to display on like electronic devices, so computer screens, mobile phones, anything that uses light and electricity to make an image is going to use RGB. And that's basically like if you can get up super close to a computer screen or a TV to the point where you see all the little pixels in it, you'll see that all those little pinpoints of light are either going to be green, red, or blue. And when all of those colors are put together, it creates white. It's kind of like a weird visual magic, but that's how literally every electronic screen makes color, is by different proportions of combinations of red, green, and blue. So that's what RGB color mode means. And that is the mode you'd want to choose if you wanted to make something that was only going to end up on the web, on a computer screen, on a phone screen, anything for like the virtual digital environment. RGB is the color mode you would choose. However, if what you're making is something that you intend to print out, so like a poster or a book or a sticker or a decal for a shirt, anything like that, printers are generally going to want you to save and create your files in CMYK color. And that is a different color mode, or a subtractive color mode, where these represent the different inks that printers use. So it stands for cyan, yellow, magenta, and then K stands for black. So those are the four printing colors. And that would be, like I said, if you were making a file that you intend to print out in a physical version, because that requires a totally different way of handling color so that printers can accurately render your colors. All right. So these other things, don't worry about if you want to change, the color of your background, but we're going to stick with white for now. It just makes things show up pretty nicely. So we've got all of these settings in and ready to go, and we're going to click create.